All right. We now call this meeting to order.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, December 21st, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd ask that we remember those in our community locally and globally that are less fortunate than we are. Remember, as many of us are celebrating whatever in a variety of ways that we are celebrating this season, there are many who are still in crisis every day. And so let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers and send them the necessary energy and help through our thoughts and prayers. Also, we ask that we remember those who have lost loved ones since we were last in these chambers. Also ask that our God and Creator give us the wisdom and the right information to make the best decisions for the citizens of Erie.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes for the council meeting of Wednesday, December 7th, 2016, and bills for payment on December 16th and 23rd, 2016. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mirsky.
Any requests for repository sales? Any requests for repository sales? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting. Citizens to be heard. The first citizen to sign up in the clerk's office ahead of time was Miss Freda Tepfler, but I do not see her here.
She's canceled.
Okay. So she canceled, so we'll take citizens from the audience. Anyone who would like to speak?
Dear members of City Council,
sorry. Name and address for the record, please.
Oh, my name is Jordan Haynoski. I'm at 626 West 25th Street. Okay. So, dear members of City Council, I come to you as a concerned citizen of Erie County who has fallen times of the City of Erie. Specifically, I would like to address the tax exemption issue in this area. Growing up in Erie, taxes always seemed to be on the minds of local homeowners around here. Back then, Bush Industries is something that specifically stood out in my mind. And now the current issue with the Bayfront hotels, especially at a critical time when our public schools desperately need assistance. I urge you leaders of Erie to consider alternatives to the current route you are taking. I advise you to heed the lessons of water. Erie is full of water, from its beaches to rivers, creeks, and potholes. The waves crash against the wave breakers, and it will take millions of years to turn the stone to sand. The legal battle that which you were proposing to deal with, the tax exemption of the Bayfront lodging, will waste resources for Erie and divest funds away into legal funds, as well as take time away from other places that we desperately need to focus on. If businesses can seek tax exemption with ease in Erie, then it is a good thing. We want businesses and we want freedom to operate. But those that seek tax exemption in Erie must prove they are still invested in the community. What I would like the governing bodies of Erie to consider is to review the current tax exemption laws and explore addendums that require institutions with tax-exempt status to still offer something to the community in Erie. For example, with weather being a serious consideration, maybe we should urge the Bayfront hotels, the Sheraton, to provide hotel vouchers for victims of domestic violence or other families in need. And maybe any manufacturing that get tax exemption for whatever reason should be mandated to provide teaching hours to support our local public education. Also consider another option. While hotels and rooms here are pretty expensive compared to other cities, they could still be cheaper. Why not have the city use some of its property to provide cheap rooms in the way of hostels? As a plus, all the revenue from these rooms would go directly to the government, and we can make the case that we aren't actually dependent on the Bayfront hotels for operating the convention center. As a last comment, I would like to mention a current trend that I've been noticing, although maybe albeit ignorantly or not too examined. But Erie is full of churches, private schools owned by the churches, nonprofit corporations, hospitals that also count as nonprofits, as I've heard, and hotels currently that are tax exempt. This current trend in Erie leads businesses to invest in churches and other tax havens for tax write-offs. And due to this, I'm seeing a trend in radical privatization, which could be the reason why government here is shrinking. This leaves me asking two questions. Number one, are the spiritual leaders here more powerful than the government? And two, how prepared are the people of Erie County for a libertarian, anarchist, or possibly theocratic government? In closing, I hope for the liberation of all people from oppression and wish Erie to be equally liberated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Any? Oh.
Good evening. Jim McGoey, 7 West 41st Street, Erie. First of all, let me say one thing. I come here as a friend of the city. I find it very interesting that the city challenges the fact that 2 hotels on the bay are tax exempt by state law. The Assessment Appeal Board did the absolute right thing in finding the way they did, since they are bound by the same law. Don't misunderstand me. I also think that these hotels should be taxed. But our fight, notice I said our fight, is not at the appeal level. It's in Harrisburg with the state law. Now, the law was in place before the Sheraton, the first hotel, was built. The Convention Center Authority buys the GAF property. And now they decide to build the second hotel. The mayor proclaims that whatever gets built there will be taxable. They decide again to build the second hotel and parking garage. Still no change in the law. What did they think was going to happen? The law was still there. That brings us to last week, and the city saying that they would like help from other taxing bodies, i.e. the county and the school district. Why didn't you accept the free help that was offered to you 4 or 5 years ago by a gentleman that stood up here and volunteered, along with a representative from the city solicitor's office, to do 2,300 assessment appeals on properties that had been sold and were undervalued to the tune of approximately $3 million in taxes? No response from council or the administration at that time. One council member told me they rely on the school district to challenge assessments. And they do. But only if they, being the school district, lose $3,000 in taxes. That $3,000 represents $180,500 in assessed value. That's the difference between the sale price and the assessed value. This is ongoing. This isn't something that stopped 3, 5, 6 years ago. It's ongoing continuously, and it should be looked at every year. Now, I'm going to give you 3 examples when I say it's ongoing of what we have to look forward to coming down the pike. You can see I've got an extensive file here, among others. I'm going to give you 3 properties located in the city. The sale price or market price, $2.4 million. Assessment, $1.5 million. Potential tax loss is $29,000. Another one's on the market for $3,650,000. It's assessed for $2,700,000. Potential tax loss, $28,000. I could go on and on. There's a bayfront lot listed down there for $99,000. The assessed value, $6,400. Folks, this is what's going to happen. I do this for a living. It's here. It's something that has to be looked at. It's crunch time for not only the school district, the city, the county, for all of us. I think that thing to do now, apparently Brad Rowe, the legislator from Crawford County, is going to draft legislation to look at the state statutes regarding this. And my recommendation, again, I'm an outsider, it's my recommendation that the city the legislators from Erie and Mr. Rowe get together and map this out, do whatever we got to do. And if I can be of any help, I'd be more than happy to do that too. But we have to do something. We have to do something. It's there. We just got to go get it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15970, official ordinance number 32, 2016. An ordinance fixing the tax rate for all city purposes for the fiscal year 2017, beginning on January 1st, 2017, and ending on December 31st, 2017. Section 1. That a tax rate for government purposes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2017, and ending December 31st, 2017, is hereby fixed and levied at the rate of 11.65 mils upon each dollar of assessed valuation of real estate taxable for city purposes in the city of Erie during the year 2017, or upon $100 of assessed valuation of real estate tax purposes in the city of Erie. That said levy for debt service purposes of the city of Erie for the year 2017 is enacted at a rate of $3,368,478. This amount will be transferred from the general fund to the debt service fund. By Mr. Mursky and seconded by Mr. Winarski, the council file bill number 15970, and now known as official file ordinance 32, 2016, be finally passed by the city council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council passed official file ordinance number 32, 2016, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file 15971, official ordinance number 33, 2016. An ordinance of the City of Erie, County of Erie, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania adopting the general fund and other certain budgets for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2017 and ending December 31st, 2017. Section 1. That the following financial program is hereby adopted for the year 2017 and the appropriations are made in the general fund and other fund accounts. Section 2. That the sum of $74,924,475 is hereby appropriated to the general fund, and the total budget, including other fund budgets, totals $52,113,432, as more fully described in supporting detail. By Mr. Mursky, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the council file ordinance bill number 15971, and now known as official file ordinance number 33, 2016, be finally passed by the city council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon,
President.
Mr. Mursky.
Mr. Witherspoon.
I just want to have for the records that one of my concerns in reviewing the budget and as a liaison to the fire department, that there were several firepersons regarding salary was making more than the chief and deputy, and I just didn't think that was right or fair. But on the other hand, I did speak with you, and you brought to my attention that it is an administrative decision, and it's not part of the union. Therefore, the budget that was presented by administration in this particular category was decided by the mayor, and I have no argument with that. I just wanted to voice my opinion that it's hard for a boss to make less than his workers, but if that is the law of the third-class city code, then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon.
City Council passed official file ordinance number 3326 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file 15972, official ordinance number 34/2016, an ordinance amending Article 330 landlord and rental by amending Section 330.12 sunset provision to extend the ordinance expiration to March 31st, 2021.
Any discussion?
I'm going to vote in favor of this now, but I will tell you that in the coming year, I'm going to be taking a close look at this. There's been a lot of complaints, and before we award this again, I want some hard answers on the direction of the program, the scope of the program, and other factors. And I hope we have some legitimate competition.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
We are extending the sunset provision again through March of 2021, but next year there's an opportunity for us. I know we have to rebid. We're rebidding next year. So we're extending the program, but we are also at the same time next year going to be tweaking and possibly making some changes in the program. But we did this, what we're doing today is just extending the life of it, but it may look different after the bidding process and the contract will be reawarded or awarded to a new provider of inspection service. So I just wanted to kind of let people know that to Mr. Kwiatkowski's comment, he said he'll be looking at it next year. We all will be checking and seeing as we award this next contract, we put this out for bid, that we're doing our due diligence to see if there are other options and to make sure that if there are no other suitable or appropriate options, that the service provider understands the many complaints that often several of us on council have gotten. And so I just wanted to give a little clarity to that as well. Program extended till 2021. But contract will be awarded next year, reawarded to someone next year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Seeing no other discussion, we'll continue on.
By Mr. Witherspoon and second by Mrs. Arrington, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15972, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 34/2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council pass official file ordinance number 34/26 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file number 15973, official ordinance number 35/2016. An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 7, Employment Provisions, Pensions, Article 145, Officers and Retirees Retirement System by amending Sections 145.13D2, 145.13 I2, 145.13B2 F1, 145.13B17, and 145.07G to comply with the IRS plan qualification requirements to obtain a plan qualification determination letter. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. The Council File Ordinance Bill number 15973, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 35/2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 35/2016 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council File number 15974, official ordinance number 36, 2016. An ordinance amending the codified ordinance of the City of Erie, Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 7, Employment Provisions, Pensions, Article 147, Police Employees Pension Plan by amending sections 147.08 I2, 147.08B2 F1, and 147.08B 17 to comply with IRS plan qualification requirements to obtain a plan qualification determination letter. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, that Council file Ordinance Bill number 15974, now known as Official File Ordinance number 36, 2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council pass Official File Ordinance number 36, 2016 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File 15975, Ordinance number 37, 2016. An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 7, Employment Provisions, Pensions, Article 149. Firefighters Pension Fund by amending sections 149.07 I2, 149.07 B2 F1, and 149.07 B17 to comply with the IRS plan qualification requirements to obtain a plan qualification determination letter. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15975, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 37, 2016, be finally passed by the City Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Witherspoon.
call for the tote board.
All right. Mr. Witherspoon called for the tote board. Let me get this all situated here. Someone already voted? All right.
There's a lot of clicking going on, but
Let's see what's going on.
there we go. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan,
All the bulbs still work?
Mr. Jones,
Red and green,
Mr.
too.
Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky.
Just for the young ladies in the back, I think that's why Mr. Witherspoon did the tote board. When there's a big vote at council, we use the tote board so that the whole audience can see what the vote was. So, what school are you guys from, if you don't mind me asking? Villa, are you here for a class? Yeah. For your government class? Well, welcome to our city council meeting. We're glad you're here.
City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 37, 2016, finally by yeas 7, nays 0.
You girls are lucky. Normally I grab one of the students and make them come up and speak. So you got off with Merry Christmas. You got off with
Mr. President, I would like to recommend one of the young ladies come up and speak.
I second that, Mr. President.
So moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. Would any of you like to?
Anybody want to?
We'll call your teacher and give extra credit.
Sure.
Come on.
Come on up. Just one, all three.
Come on.
Strength in numbers. Just all come up.
Call security.
Not budget.
A three-strand cord isn't easily broken. Come on up and say something. Represent your school. Come on, come on.
There you go.
There you go. All right, all right. You could maybe even say, like, go Ramblers, state champs or something. I don't know. What? Right? It's your counter.
Soccer was good this year, too. They went
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Welcome. It's refreshing to see some young people here, so thank you for being here. You want to introduce yourself and what grade you're in? And
We're all seniors. I'm Julia Kreidinger.
I'm Morgan Cesoric.
I'm Michaela Belmonte.
well, welcome. Welcome. What is the purpose of your class? What do you have to report back?
We just have to write a paper on like the agenda and like everything that was debated, pretty much.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to stay after the meeting and speak individually with us, one-on-one. We'd love to have you do that. So, if you, what's that? No, I'm not going to joke, Jim. So, you want like a contentious debate? Is that what you're saying? So, yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate you guys, and we hope to give you something good to write about.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mrs. Boyer.
Okay, that's
Getting out of hand today, right?
Brings us to new business.
New
now.
business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
So moved.
I don't know, Mr. President. I don't know why he should move.
Just second it, Mel. Come on.
Well,
I'll second it, Mr. President.
no, you're going to second it, huh?
So,
I moved the
girls
table.
in the back, what happened now is we're on new business on the agenda, and when you get to new business, we can move the balance of the agenda, which means we're going to lump everything together and vote on it as a package. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask, are there any separations? At this time, any council member can pick one of these items that they want to speak about, or they want a separate vote from the group, and we can separate those items, and then we'll vote on the remaining portion of the agenda. So that's what's going on now. Are there any separations? Seeing none, we'll take the vote.
All right, moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. We have two waive rules, Mr. President.
Yes. Oh, you're here for a good one. So we have a waive rules. So
We have
the teacher in me, two waive rules. The teacher in me is coming out now. So on a waive rules, now we have to get Ms. Roby or Mrs.
We have
Boyer
to have
5 votes.
Passed by 5 votes.
So we need 5 votes. These are not on the agenda, and they were submitted after the agenda was printed. So we have to waive the rules in order to vote on them. So that's what we're going to do at this time.
Okay, resolution number 28, waiving the rules. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon,
No.
Mr. Mursky. All right, this waive rules will adopt by 6 yeas, nays 1. By Mr. Jones, seconded by Mr. Mursky. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that Mr. Michael Outlaw, Sr. of 432 East 26th Street, Erie, is hereby appointed to the Erie Water Authority for a 5-year term from January 2nd, 2017, expiring the first Monday of January 2022.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
This is my intention to appoint Mr. Outlaw to this authority. He's a lifelong Erie resident, a great example of a young leader, young person who's born and raised here, who's overcome some different challenges in life, like we all have. Has educated himself, his master's level, working with young people in our community, and is looking for opportunities to serve in a greater way. And he availed himself to this volunteer appointment. And so I think I did send his resume. If I did not, if you have any questions, any council members on his resume or anything like that, if you did not get it, I'll make sure you get that. And but I know that he will serve our community well in this capacity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Witherspoon.
I may be mistaken, but the rules of the Water Authority says he must have his license from the Red Cross, life-saving certificate, and I did not see that, so how could he go on the Water Authority?
Mr. President, if I could respond.
Please, Mr. Jones.
What's happening is that he has an electronic version of that certification, and I know you do not enjoy the technical and technology side of things, so I will print one out, a hard copy for you, sir. But he, with enlarged print, and Braille if necessary, but I will print that out for you. He is totally qualified for this appointment.
Mr. President?
Mr. Witherspoon.
I don't want to discuss it anymore.
Okay, with that, we
call a question.
We have a call for the question.
All right, roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski,
Christmas
Mr.
theater.
Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. Okay, resolution number 29, waiving the rules. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. By Mr. Jones, seconded by Mr. Mursky. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that Mr. John Vincent of 1339 West 10th Street, Erie, is hereby appointed to the Erie Sewer Authority for a 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2021. Discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
This is, again, my intention to appoint Mr. Vincent to the Sewer Authority. Again, another young man in the community, has worked with young people, has educated himself. We won't hold this against him, but he is a Cathedral Prep alum, and but in all seriousness, very much dedicated and is very interested in serving the community in a broader way and being more involved at a higher level to make our community better. And so he has availed himself to serve on this volunteer authority, and I give a strong recommendation and appreciate the support of my peer council members to support this appointment.
Mr. President.
Mr. Witherspoon.
I am totally disappointed in Councilman Jones to present that to this body in the fashion that he did. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you for your time.
See,
Mr. Jones.
Call for the question. Call for the question, please.
We have a call for the question, but before we do that, I do want to just say that I do know both gentlemen, Mr. Outlaw and Mr. Vincent. They're both outstanding community members that are really trying to get involved and make a difference, and I think that they'll represent the city of Erie well on these boards. We'll call for the question.
Roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. That will take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Mr. President, quick question. I'm not a teacher by education.
Yes.
But just for the students to know that a lot of times most of the time when we vote in the affirmative or yes, we do it in silence. So our silence is our acceptance and our yes vote. If we did disagree, as you were party to witnessing Mr. Witherspoon's disagreement, you actually verbalize your no. And so that might be a little nuance that is different in other meetings and other settings that might add a little spice to your paper. We vote in the affirmative, or we vote yes by saying nothing. And we vote no by verbalizing the no vote if we're not using the tote board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. So that takes us to committee reports. Each council member, ladies, has assignments. They have different committees that they can report on. Because it's the end of the year, a lot of the authorities and a lot of the boards that they are liaisons to haven't had meetings, they don't usually don't have a meeting in December, so it might be a little light today. But at this point, that's what we do is go through each committee. And then each individual council person has this is their time to speak. We had at the beginning citizens to be heard, and then at the end, each individual council member gets the same 5 minutes as the citizens do. So with that, we'll start with Mrs. Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no committee report, but I would like to ask everybody to keep everyone who has lost a loved one in their thoughts and prayers. You know, this is a hard time for us, the holiday seasons, when you're going through the holidays without your loved one. I lost my son January 5th, it'll be 7 years ago, and it always seemed like yesterday. We still have a lot of things going on out there in our community, but I truly believe if we continue to unify and stick together, we can bring back the hope and love and peace that our community mourns for. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and God bless.
Thank you, Mrs. Arrington. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just had a question I meant to ask Mr. Lichtenwalter earlier, if we were able to check into the pilot question we had concerning Cathedral Prep and the discussion we had during budget session. So if he could get back to us, let us know if he heard anything on that. I thought it was, excuse me, I do want to say, and I hope I'm not stealing the thunder of our president being an alumni, but I was very proud of the representation of the young men and staff at Cathedral Prep winning the state football championship in their division. I jokingly very much make, a lot of comedy around not being a Prep fan. Ha ha ha, joke. But when you represent, I don't care what school you're from or who you are, when you're representing our community, we're family. And so we really congratulate that school, those young men, their families, and representing themselves and their school well, and also representing our city and our region well. And so kudos to them for that effort. I appreciate my fellow council members for supporting the two appointments that I have recommended for the water and sewer authorities for the next 5 years. I do truly believe that these young men will serve at a high level of excellence, and not just high level of excellence in the room or in the meeting, but will be good at effectively bringing information that's pertinent back to community members, so that people can be more informed in areas like, again, our our pseudo-governmental authorities. A lot of times, a lot of business that affects citizens happens not just through this body or through the mayor's office, but through the authorities, the airport authority, the water, the sewer, convention center, et cetera. And we don't really hear a lot about that. And so these gentlemen, I believe and know, will serve very well in those capacities. Finally, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, however you celebrate. Just celebrate family and love and life. Enjoy the moment, because that's all we've got. The one that just passed is over. The one that's coming up isn't here yet. So let's enjoy the now. And be a blessing and a gift to someone. Sometimes we get gifts a lot, but it's really more empowering to give something than it is to receive something. The irony of that is the more you give, the more you receive. So I don't know, you can look at it however you want, but just love someone during this season. And as we're moving out of this year into the next new year, I look forward to working with this group of this motley crew. Yeah, this motley crew of folks. We've had a great year, a challenging year in a lot of ways, but we got a lot of good work done. And so thank you. I know this is our last meeting of the year, right? So, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership in facilitating over this year, and for all of us doing everything in our own sphere of influence to make this community better on this dais, in other meetings, and in the community with the work that we do. Thank you all very much. And finally, my my oldest son, Curtis Jones III, turned 21 yesterday. So CJ, I know I look 25. I know you're shocked, but happy birthday to you, Curtis, if you're watching. And believe it or not, my kids do watch this stuff. They tell me when my ties are crooked and all of that. And so happy birthday, son. I love you very much. And that's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. President, one quick thing, yes. And I want to wish Mr. Curtis here a happy birthday. It's his birthday today. Curtis the second. So happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Somebody mute the mics, please. Mute the
Happy birthday to you. There.
Curtis,
oh, boy. Erie's Got Talent.
But it's not on council. I don't know.
Mr. Winarski.
Tough to follow that. Very, very brief this evening. EMTA did have a meeting this past Monday. They moved it up due to the holiday, but they will have a new board in place in January, which was part of the agreement we had with the county regarding the charter issue. They finally have awarded the new contracts for Phase 2 of their project down there on Parade Street, which is going all the way over to French Street. That project, or Phase 2 of that project, actually is supposed to start as early as February, so that was good news to hear. Mr. Tan has already offered to brief council with any additional details or questions that council may have. I told him we'll wait till after January and try to set something up for one of the February meetings, but at least things are getting back to the norm on the EMTA, and they can move forward and finish the project and do their job like they're supposed to do. Naturally, we finalized our 2017 budget. Our budget sessions went very well, much in line with this current year. Mainly the only additional costs were the contractual labor increases, which are out of our control. But once again, it's nice to be presented with a balanced budget and with no tax or fee increases. It's not only advantageous to us on council, but it's great and good for all of us as the citizens of Erie. And just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Be safe and enjoy your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I attended the O&E meeting of the pension board. Things are progressing very, very well. They had an increase in assets. Attended the Erie Parking Authority meeting. There's nothing at this time to add, except, I'll be in close contact with them about a possible another study session. We're kind of waiting for the solicitor to render an opinion on some of the things we push forward as a council. Getting on to the tax-exempt issue, which is kind of like a sore spot for me this week, that was a kind of a great setback for us. I know what the law says, but as you learn, if you take business law or any kind of law, there's the word of the law and the intent of the law. And I certainly hope their intent is not to bury third-class cities and other cities, because if we have no way grinding out of this hole, there's no hope for us. I mean, the whole issue on tax exempts has to be looked at. You can't have a gentleman like Mr. Kennedy building a hotel on one side of the highway and he pays taxes. You're going to have Mr. Scott possibly building a hotel. He's going to pay taxes. I know it's a poor analogy, but think if you were Pete Ricardo out there and for some strange reason the county or the city decided to fund a Ruth Chris Steakhouse that would never have come to Erie. You can see the frustration in those other hotel owners. And as a city, I mean, just a loss in revenue alone. People ask me, I shouldn't have been shocked, but I mean, I got hit in church, I got hit at the places I went around town. There was a lot of disgust out there. And whether intended or not, our legislators need to address this issue. It's been addressed at the League of Cities, and I know the math is against us. Real simple, if you look at Erie County, you take out the two urban legislators, figure out who's left, and you see what the problem is. There's more more suburban and rural legislators. So they don't see the problem that we're seeing in the city. And thank God for those businesses that do have faith in Erie and are expanding, such as Erie Insurance and even Hammett. I mean, even though they're a nonprofit, at least we're getting 50% out of them. And something has to be done, because if this doesn't change, we're in trouble. And I do hope the administration and I hope my fellow council members support, even though it may be a Pyrrhic attempt, we need to appeal this and force the issue. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, especially to my fellow council members. As Mr. Jones said, it's been a very challenging year. It's a pleasure serving with people on this board, because we've done a lot of great things over the last 3 years, things that a lot of people didn't think would ever see the light of day, but they have. And I'd like to wish our servicemen and women a very merry holiday and Christmases, because for those of us who have served, it's a very lonely time. So if you know somebody in the service, or even if you don't, drop them a letter. There are many sites you can do it at. And just, give them a Merry Christmas, because it's very lonely out there. And also to our police and firemen who are going to work on Christmas, believe it or not, they do not take a day off. And to the citizens, I wish them all a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, and whatever holiday they decide to honor. But let's have a great holiday. Let's move on to the new year. And finally, I'd like to cede my time to my senior colleague so he can finish his musical dissertations there.
Mr. Witherspoon.
Mr. President, I think it would be apropos to say something to Councilman on behalf of Barry White.
Okay. We got to wait till your turn.
No, baby, you know what I'm talking about. You got to ease up over there, baby.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's your report.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Brennan.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will not be singing. You don't want to hear that. Everybody leave the room. A couple updates I want to report on for the Port Authority. They recently adopted their strategic plan. That was a long process, but that is complete now, and they're going to be developing a waterfront master plan. If you remember, one was done back in 2009. And of course, this is something that'll be new. It's been a while, and it's been discussed a lot. In a lot of groups is to see this happen. So that'll be happening in the near future. For the urban farming initiative, I want to update on that. The Planning Commission continues to review possible amendments to the zoning regulations to allow urban farming. At their meeting yesterday, they reviewed draft amendments, and currently details are being worked out, and they have noted that they should have a final draft next month. So everyone on council should look forward to seeing that and seeing what the work that they've done to put that together. There's a lot of good work going on. And I want to just have an update on the Erie Comprehensive Planning. I've been trying to attend not every meeting, but a couple of meetings. There are two kind of current phases that are going on. One's a core strengthening action plan, and the second, I'll say, phase is a neighborhood strengthening and stability strategy. Along with that, phase two, there's going to be neighborhood public input meetings. But in creating the core strengthening action plan, there's 4 teams that have been created, one for neighborhoods, one for downtown, one for waterfront, and one for 12th Street corridor. The next steps are to present the action plan, phase 1 action plan, the core strengthening to the administration and to council for approval in hopefully January. And then following that is to start phase 2, which would be the neighborhood strengthening and stability strategy. And then to follow up with phase 2 with neighborhood public meetings. That's my report, and happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Just a few things to report. I just wanted to do this. This is an unruly group today. A couple things. The biggest thing that we did today was we passed a budget that has no tax increase and no fee increase. And I think that in this day and age of increasing payroll costs for our employees, that was in healthcare costs and legacy costs and the pension, that was a really difficult thing, and I want to thank the administration for bringing a balanced budget to us, and I want to thank my colleagues on council for their due diligence in meeting with their department heads and going through that budget line by line, item by item, to give the citizens a balanced budget this year with no tax and no fee increase. That's challenging. We're not always able to do that, and we have to celebrate those successes when we have them. Speaking of celebrating success, again, we'd like to congratulate Cathedral Prep's football team. I had the privilege and honor of working with Coach Mishler back in the early 2000s, and what an honor for him to be able to coach his son, and his son had such a critical role in that victory, come from behind victory over Imhotep in the state championship. They were they made Erie proud. You know, when we were watching the game, they said Erie Cathedral Prep. They kept calling it Erie Prep, and so Erie was prominently displayed. And we wish them the continued success, because those young men, a lot of them have very bright futures ahead of them, both athletically and academically. I had the privilege and honor also of speaking to the Jefferson Education Society leadership class on what City Council does and leadership in the city. And they had some very challenging questions. A lot of the questions pertained actually to parking and to the city comprehensive plan. I answered them as best I could, and we have a nice group of young, a cross-section of people from across the county that were in that program, and it was good to speak to them and tell them a little bit about what we do here at City Hall. In this agenda today, we didn't really speak about it, but there are a couple things. Mr. Kwiatkowski alluded to it, or he spoke on the one thing, and I agree with him, on the landlord rental ordinance. When that goes up for bid, we do need to tighten that program up, and that is probably one of the things that I get the most complaints about, is the rental inspection program. And so we need to look at, address those concerns that the citizens have as we rebid that project out. It is a good program to have that rental inspection program. When we remember the origins of that, the reason it came about is because of some deaths in some rental units due to lack of egress and lack of fire smoke detectors and fire prevention measures. So it is a good program, but we, like everything, it's always good to take a look at things, refine them, and make them better. So I hope that we're able to do that moving forward. And the final two things I wanted to say here, we have a resolution that Mr. Jones put in for a multimodal grant for $277,000 from PennDOT to support the work that's being done with the Velocity Net project. This is a multimodal grant to put the fiber optic underground for them to support the increased capacity that they need for both electricity and fiber optics, and also for improved street lighting in that area, and to make that area transformative. And so we're supporting them on that through our Economic and Community Development Office, and also supporting Erie Insurance in their new home office with an easement agreement. You know, some of the times you hear on TV sometimes that the city's not a good place to do business. These two things here are proof positive that this city council isn't about the status quo, that we're about moving this city forward. And progress is slow. It takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes sometimes heavy lifting. And, you know, we're dealing with multi-government agencies, and especially with those state grants, but we keep pushing it forward. And that's how we're going to move this community forward. And I'm very pleased with this council, because every time there's been an issue like that, we've been on the side of progress. And so I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as president this year. And with that, I'm done. So, Ms. Stankiewicz.
I don't have any report.
Point of order, sir.
Go
ahead, sweetheart. Go ahead.
No report on my end, but...
Yeah, I should gavel some people today, and I did.
Just one.
Administration, Ms. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you on behalf of the administration for serving in the capacity. It's been a pleasure working with you and all of you on council. It's been my honor to sit here, and I look forward to doing so into 2017 and helping to move the city forward. Had the opportunity to attend the Barber Ball. Many thanks to the Barber Center, the Schultz, Robin, Kim Schultz, Paul and Tracy Diefenbach. They put on a great show, beautiful fireworks display, and certainly benefits a lot of people in need through the Barber Center. So a lovely time, I think, was had by all, and it was nice to see some of you folks there. Happy birthday to Mr. Jones the second. Just want to say have a Merry Christmas, and we look forward to next year. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Beck?
Yes,
you think you can consider Mel Berry White Witherspoon next year for Celebrate
If
Erie?
anything more happens in this chambers, we might have to charge an amusement tax to you folks. So,
Hey, that's right. We get 3%. That's right.
I do want to just add, Ms. Beck, that one of the great things that the Barber National Institute does with that Barber Ball is they have the fundraiser, but the following night they recreate the same dance for their clients, and so all the clients come in and they have a dance for the Barber Center clients, and that's great. And I would be remiss too. We were on Thanksgiving break when it was Mr. Witherspoon's birthday, so we have 2 birthdays here. Happy birthday, Mr. Jones and Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr.
And again, to all the citizens of the city of Erie, happy holidays. Please be safe and enjoy
Mr.
time
President,
with your friends and family.
I would like to give a short report.
Yes.
I know Jim has something to do with it. But anyway, again, happy birthday to you, Councilman Jones. But I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, you did an outstanding job. You kept us focused. You kept us moving. You kept the text messages going. But you did a very good job. All of us appreciate the time that you put into it. Very, very good job. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
City Council adjourns at 8:34 p.m. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Patelski, Mr. Minorski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mercer.